Hi everyone, hope you guys can hear me. So you would not be able to turn on your video and you can actually type things in. Okay, so we'll start in a bit. Just give us 2 to 3 minutes, let everybody join, and then we would have our experts joining in to actually continue the talk. All right. Thank you guys for being so patient. Okay. So give us about 2 to 3 minutes. We'll just wait for everybody else to join and then we'll start, guys. All right. Nice to see all of you. Hi, Renuka, Vamshi, Ori. Hi. We just have a lot more people joining in right now. Hi, everybody, everyone who's joining in now. Hi there. We'll be starting in a bit. We're just still waiting. We just have a lot of people still joining in. Hi, Sukhveer, Simran. Hi, Noel. Hi, Saurav, Lubna. Nice to see all of you here. Okay. Hi, Gnanavil. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I am. Hi, Sachin. So just waiting for a few more students. We already have the panelists here who would be addressing you. Hi, Akash. Hi, Gopalakrishnan. Hi, Jasmine. So thank you guys for waiting so patiently. You guys are awesome. Hi, Ayush. Here is a moment. So we will be starting in about a minute. Barsha Rani. I hope I'm saying that right again. That's a really unique name. Nice to have you here. Hi, Sohini. All right, guys. A lot of you in here. Thank you guys for joining. Really excited to have every one of you here. Nice to meet you too, Nikhil. So I would like to actually, first of all, welcome everyone. I'm going to be the moderator for this webinar. All right. My name is Seema. Well, in today's webinar, we are going to focus on why IELTS is actually critical for your progress to study in international universities. And it's going to help you get a clear understanding of its significance for, especially for those of you who are looking at countries other than USA for your higher education journey. All right. In this webinar, we have our IELTS expert, Rahul Mahadeshwar, who will shed light on the significance of IELTS. Well, Rahul has been a master trainer for IELTS for over 10 years now. He has taken his IELTS exam. He has taught at various universities and institutions in India as well as abroad. And for our, admissions expert, we have Vikram Balla. So he's the one who's going to talk to you about the importance of IELTS, especially with respect to the admissions. Now, having completed his master's in the UK, Vikram understands the international admissions process really well. And he has taken the IELTS exam himself. He has over 17 years of experience in advising students on their plans for higher education abroad. Now, before we start, since you guys cannot turn on your videos to ask questions, please make sure you guys are doing what you're doing. That is, type in your questions in the chat box. And these questions will be addressed as much as it can be at the end of the webinar. So it might be a bit hard for a panelist to actually take in the questions right in between, all right? So do make sure that you stay until the end of the webinar to clear all of your queries. So Rahul, do you want to take over? Hi, Sneha.
Hi, Seema. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome for today's session on the insights to the IELTS exam. And we will also be talking about what the IELTS exam is. Just a basic understanding. I'm sure all of you all have already done a lot of research. I'm sure all of you all have actually spent time understanding what the exam is. But I'll just talk to you a little about it. I'll talk to you about the exam itself. And then I will hand it over to Vikram, who will talk to you about it from an admissions perspective, which I'm sure a lot of you all will be keen to listen to. So without wasting any more time, what is the IELTS exam and what is it consist of? So the IELTS exam is basically an exam that says that it is the International English Language Testing System. Now, sounds very simple. It's an English exam, and all of us know that it's an English exam, and that it will test our English proficiency. But the question arises is that why is it important, and what is the reason that it is important, and why are we required to give this test? Why can't it just be an English test like a lot of us have had in school? We have reading and comprehension in school, and we have writing letters in school, and we have maybe giving literature in school. So why isn't that enough? And what is the reason that there has to be a separate exam for IELTS, for the English testing? So let's just understand the reason behind this, and let us understand what is the necessity of this. So what does the IELTS exam actually do? One, the IELTS exam is a necessity, and I'm sure all of you know this. The IELTS exam is a necessity for any kind of higher education that you want to do in an international university. And when I say international university, I'm talking about a university or an institution of study where English is your major medium of instruction. So that is the language that you're taught in. That is the language that you will be studying in. That is the language that your questions will be in. That is the language you will be doing your assignments in. So in any country which has this kind of requirement and this kind of a study system, you will need your IELTS, right? The IELTS is also required if you're looking at a career growth, right? Remember, when you go to a university abroad, you plan to study there. Naturally, there are plans, and there are ideas, and there are the things that you think about which you want to do after your studies. What do you want to pursue? What is the career that you want to pursue? And when it comes to these careers, your employability as well as your career progress becomes very, very important, right? Your career progress and employability become very, very important when it comes to your future. And therefore the IELTS is a very important component of this employability and your career progress. Lastly, we can also look at IELTS, which is a very, very important factor in immigration. Now, for those of you, and I'm sure many of you will think that, oh, I'm planning to just go. I don't plan to study. I plan to go and settle down in a country. I plan to go and settle down there. I plan to go and study there and then get my, my residency, my permanent residency in that country, whatever it may be. In any of these scenarios, your IELTS again becomes a very important component, right? So IELTS is important for your education. IELTS is important for your career. IELTS is important for your immigration purposes and for your future goals in a country, right? So overall, if you look at it, IELTS becomes important everywhere. So the next question that comes up is, which IELTS do I take? Now, the IELTS, there are different types of IELTS exams, and I'm sure you'll have heard of this. You'll have heard of IELTS for life skills. You'll have heard of IELTS UKVI. You've heard of IELTS academic. You've heard of IELTS general, etc., etc., etc. Let us briefly understand what they are and what you need to do. The IELTS exam is basically, you have two modules. You have your IELTS academic and you have your IELTS general. IELTS academic, as the name suggests, is for students who wish to go and study abroad. Whether you want to do a master's, whether you want to do a bachelor's, whether you want to do a PhD, whether you want to do any kind of studies, the IELTS is important, and the IELTS academic is important. Then you have the IELTS general. Now, what is the general? If you remember the last slide, we spoke about immigration. We spoke about going and settling in a country like, where you have countries where they require a certain IELTS score for you to be able to apply for your permanent residency in that country. That is where the IELTS general exam comes, right? The IELTS general is different from the IELTS academic, as in it will ask you and it will test things about you which will be more in a professional arena. It will ask you things which will be more based on a social arena, whereas IELTS academic will be more a test of your English skills in an educational arena. So they are two different IELTS exams. Now, besides that, yes, there is the paper-based test, and there is the computer-based test. And a lot of students come to me and ask me, which one should I take? Should I take the paper-based test? Should I take the computer-based test? Which one should I take? And that is a question that you need to actually ask yourself. And you need to ask your, you need to assess yourself and see whether you want to take the computer-based test or the paper-based test and the various components along with it. Then we have the IELTS UKVI and the IELTS for life skills. Now, IELTS for life skills is not something that will be very important as far as most of you over here, or probably all of you over here, are concerned. IELTS for life skills is usually IELTS exam that is given by the spouse of someone who wants to go to a country to settle down, or by someone who is looking to, get citizenship in a country. So it is not something that is going to be that is going to kind of affect this for most of you here. Most of you are going to be primary applicants to these countries. Most of you are going to be primary people who are going to apply to these countries. So it's not going to be, IELTS for life skills will not affect you. IELTS UKV1 VI is again a very specialized visa that is required, IELTS exam that is required by the UK United Kingdom Visa and Immigration Department. That is what UKVI stands for. United Kingdom Visa and Immigration Department. Now, this is a very, it's a more, how should I put it? It's a more security driven test. which is going to be, it's going to be specially required by certain, there'll be certain universities, tier 1 and tier 2 visas, which will require it. But the idea is, when you do apply, and if you're applying to the UK for studies, the idea would be that you look at universities which universities would clearly state out what type of IELTS that you require. And if they give you a choice of both, between the IELTS and the IELTS UK V1, VI, go ahead with the normal IELTS exam, right? Unless it is very specifically specified by the university that they want a UK VI IELTS. What is the difference between the two exams? Nothing. So there is no difference. The IELTS academic and the UK VI academic is basically the same, except for, well, there are two major differences, two small differences. The UK VI is more expensive to give. That is number one. And number two, the UK VI visa, as far as your speaking section is concerned, will be video recorded. So the questions will be the same, etc., and they will be video recorded. Now, some of you may think, okay, so that's the UK VI. What about IELTS for life skills? IELTS for life skills is an exam that will test only your speaking and your listening sections. And speaking also happens, it doesn't happen with an examiner, it happens with two candidates speaking and an examiner there. So it's a much simpler exam, right? So we won't get into all that. That is not as far as you are required or your necessity. So what IELTS do you give? You, if you're planning to go to study, 99% of the time, you will be giving the IELTS academic. If you're planning to go for immigration purposes to countries where IELTS is accepted and required, you will be giving the IELTS general exam. Whether you give paper-based, computer-based, those are things that you need to later on decide. And as I said, UK VI is a specialized visa, and it is probably only required when your university or your institute of study will specifically ask for it. So what is the importance of IELTS? Just to quickly, briefly sum up and talk about it. One, IELTS is recognized by over 10,000 plus institutes and universities and institutions and organizations in over 140 countries. So it is a very, very well-known IELTS exam, English language proficiency exam, and probably the most sought after proficiency exam that there is. Almost all universities, and if I'm not wrong, maybe 99% of universities in UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada accept IELTS. And now a large number of universities, a very, very large number of universities, which I'm sure Vikram will confirm with you, from the US also has started accepting IELTS also. Right? It is an important exam and probably the first step as far as immigration is concerned to countries such as the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. It is accepted by almost most international professional registration bodies. So if you're planning to go to a country for a professional setup, if you're planning to go for a professional course or a professional work permit, you will need to give the IELTS exam. Lastly, and the most important, definitely the most important, the scores of the IELTS exam are important if you want to know as a student whether you're going to perform in a country or in an university. And it also tells the university whether you as a student will be able to match up to the requirements of the program that you're planning to study. So it's not only a test which is going to tell you that, oh, you're good in English or you're not good in English, or you're able to meet the requirements for admission into a university. It will also tell the university whether you have the English language ability to study a specified program in that university. And that becomes equally important. Think of a scenario, where you go and you don't understand what is being taught. You don't understand what the lecturers are saying. You don't understand what the professors are saying. You may not understand the language, you may not understand the accent, you may not understand the terms that are being used, whatever it may be. Will you succeed in that university? You will not. You will not succeed. So the IELTS is a twofold examination. It is an examination that tells you your level. It is an examination that tells the university your capability. Please remember, this is not a competitive exam. The IELTS is not a competitive exam. You're not competing with anyone. You are there to give an exam, give a test, or take a test rather, sorry. You're there to take a test, which will basically give you admission into a university of your choice. You're there to take a test, which will tell you, yes, you meet the requirements for that university. And that's it. So this is as far as the IELTS is concerned. Before I continue, I will take questions from you at the end. Once Vikram finishes, Vikram and myself both, we will take questions and we will try and answer as many questions as we can. Vikram, over to you. Thank you, everyone. And Vikram, over to you now.
Thank you, Rahul, for a very comprehensive overview of IELTS. That was very useful. And just give me a minute while I set up the presentation. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm a member of the admissions counseling team here at the Princeton Review, and I'm happy to talk to you about the role of IELTS in the admissions process. Now, when it comes to admissions, universities in all major countries, including some Indian universities, will look at your profile in entirety. They will look at your college academic performance through your official transcripts. They will look at how you express yourself and what your experience and what your profile is all about through your CV or resume, through your statement of purpose, recommendation letters, and other documents on your application form. And these are all the necessary conditions as far as your admissions is concerned. However, IELTS is a sufficient condition. Without IELTS, you cannot receive admission, even though it is not a competitive requirement. Having said that, you are expected to be over the minimum. You are expected to have an IELTS score that shows you are over the minimum or at the minimum required to gain admission. So let's look at the different countries that emphasize IELTS in their admissions process and require it. Let's look at the UK first. IELTS provides UK universities the confidence that you can study well in the English language and will be a useful addition to their classroom. You have the required English competency to interact with other English-speaking students. Now, prestigious universities in the UK have a higher IELTS requirement, where many of them will require an overall score of 7.5 or 7 and a minimum score of 6.5. Other universities may have a lower criteria. They may require a 6.5 overall with a minimum of 6 in each section. Now, when it comes to when you should take IELTS for admission to a UK university, UK is probably the only country where many universities allow you to appear for IELTS after you have applied. And if you apply without the IELTS, many universities will issue you a conditional offer letter. And the condition will be that if you get an IELTS score of overall 7.5 with a minimum of 7 in each section, or overall 7 with 6.5 in each section, or whatever their admissions policy is, the university will then issue you an unconditional offer letter. IELTS is therefore a condition of admission. Now, once you have secured admission and you start preparing for the visa process, the IELTS score has a role to play there as well, because in order to issue you the confirmation of acceptance of studies or the CAS document, which allows you to start a visa application on the UKVI portal, the university again has to verify your IELTS score and even mention on the CAS document that you meet the minimum academic requirement at the university as far as IELTS is concerned. Now, once you have received the CAS and apply for the UK visa, at the point of submitting your documents to the VFS, which is the visa service provider, as well as, and VFS will take your visa application to the British High Commission, and VFS will again get back to you on the final decision of the UK High Commission as to whether they have granted your visa or not. So the IELTS score has to be attached to the visa file as well. So just to summarize, UK, the IELTS has a very critical role to play at all levels of at all stages of the admissions and visa process. Let's now look at some other popular countries which also require IELTS as a sufficient condition for admission. Yeah, before we do that, I'll just show you this table which clearly states that different universities in the UK have different IELTS requirements. So when you're selecting universities, if you have taken the IELTS already, then that process of selecting universities is also IELTS dependent. So do look at the IELTS requirements or ask your admissions counselor to verify the IELTS requirements for you. And if you're planning to apply to the UK and have certain universities in mind, then look at their IELTS score and see whether your score meets their criteria or not. Not just the overall score, but the individual bands as well, because universities across the world do specify a minimum score apart from the overall required score, which is 0.5 higher than the minimum score. So essentially, universities are saying it's okay if your minimum score in 1 or 2 sections is lower than our overall required score, that's fine. We still believe you have the English competency to study at our institution and be successful in the classroom, but you should compensate that 0.5 lower band in 1 or 2 sections with 0.5 or higher band in some other section. All right, moving on to Australia now. Likewise, IELTS provides Australian universities the confidence that you can study well in the English language and be a successful student in their classroom. Like the UK, prestigious universities in Australia also require a 0.5 to 1 point higher on the IELTS, while 6.5 is the minimum score for certain lower universities, and colleges and tertiary institutes may even accept a 6 or a 5.5, especially those which are providing vocational training. Also, the requirement for postgraduate or master's programs is typically 0.5 higher than undergraduate programs. Now, when it comes to the visa process again, let us assume you have applied to the university. Now, in order to allow you to go for a visa, or in order for you to be able to go for apply for an Australian visa, you require an electronic confirmation of enrollment document from the Australian university. And an Australian university will issue this electronic confirmation of enrollment or ECOE document, on the basis of which you can apply for the Australian student visa after verifying that you are a genuine temporary entrant, or GTE as they call it, And this verification is also dependent on your IELTS score. And then once you proceed for the visa, once you proceed to file the visa application, the IELTS is again looked at. And Australia, we all know, is a country where all sorts of Indian students with varying academic ability have been applying in the past, often trying to use education as a means to get into the country. So if you have a high IELTS score, your chances of getting the Australian visa are more secure because it sets you apart from the immigration crowd, which is trying to use education as just a means to try to enter Australia. Here again, you can see that some of the more competitive or higher ranked Australian universities do require a 0.5 higher IELTS overall band compared to some other institutions which have a lower requirement. So this again will play a role in your university selection process. Let's look at Canada now. Now, IELTS provides Canadian universities, again, it gives them the stamp that you can study and be successful in an English speaking environment. Like Australia and the UK, prestigious universities have a slightly higher requirement for IELTS. It is again required for the Canadian universities to issue you the offer letter on the basis of which you can apply for a Canadian study permit. One thing to note is that the concept of conditional admission, which we spoke about as far as UK universities are concerned, does not apply for Canadian universities. So you do have to have, so you should have taken your IELTS score before you apply, and your application will be considered complete and reviewed only after the university has seen your IELTS score, and that should be received by them before or by the admissions deadline. And subsequently, you are required to attach your IELTS score for the visa process, and a high IELTS score really improves your chances of receiving the study permit to enter Canada. Now, while there are different types of IELTS, which Rahul mentioned at the start of this discussion, one thing to note is that a lot of people now apply to Canada because Canada offers a very transparent permanent resident application process. And while for the admissions, you would have taken the academic IELTS, if you score well and once you have a hold on the IELTS, the same preparation will be useful for you once you study there and decide to apply for a PR or a permanent residentship, even though you would then be taking the general training exam. Top Canadian universities again require a slightly higher IELTS score. And yeah, likewise, when it comes to other countries such as Ireland and New Zealand, when it comes to Ireland, Trinity College Dublin, um, and many other institutions are world famous and students really aspire to study there. All of these institutions require the IELTS, as do universities in New Zealand. Now, IELTS also has a great role to play in other academic destinations, which are emerging destinations, and now students, a small number of students go there every year, and this number may be small compared to Australia, UK, or Canada, but it's a growing number. So whether it is Singapore and Hong Kong, or whether it is France, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark in Western Europe, or even a few, or even good universities in emerging destinations such as Poland and Eastern European countries, IELTS is again required. Now, the big reveal here is that many students not only apply to universities in, say, UK or Singapore, but they also want to apply to a few select universities in the US. Now, the good news here is that IELTS is accepted in the US, and an increasing number of universities in the US are accepting this exam. So again, when you are selecting universities and if you have taken the IELTS and US is on your radar, do look at their minimum score requirements, do look at whether they accept it or not. Most of them do. So this is extremely helpful for students applying across North American, UK, and universities in other countries, because IELTS is the only exam that has acceptance in so many countries across the world to prove your English proficiency. Now, the thing worth noting is that unlike the UK, universities in US do not offer a conditional admission. They would require you to have taken the IELTS before the application deadline, and they would require you to have uh, uploaded the score report into your online application before the deadline or by the deadline, so that they consider your application complete. So here on the IELTS website, you can see which universities in the US accept the IELTS, and you can cross-check this data with the university that you intend to apply to as well. So that's pretty much it from my side. Before we move to the question and answer session, I'd just like to say that IELTS is a fairly simple exam, and it helps you develop, or it helps you to bring out many different types of English speaking competency, which is required for you to be a student in an international classroom or to do an internship in an international environment. And while you're preparing for the IELTS, do work hard, because certain techniques like using the topic sentence at the start of every paragraph in the writing section, that's a universal technique that will serve you well even when you're writing your essays, drafting your personal statements or statement of purpose for the admissions process. So when you're preparing for the IELTS, don't just use it, don't just use that preparation to become, to take an exam and then be done with it, but be mindful of the techniques and tips which your faculty would give you or which you learn by yourself, because they are transferable to the college application or the university application, essay writing or statement of purpose writing process as well. So that's pretty much it from my side. Over to you now, Seema and Rahul, for the question and answer.
Thank you, Vikram, and thank you, Rahul, as well. So, guys, we are now open to questions. You can actually type in your questions in the chat box, and depending upon who it actually is more relevant to, they would answer your questions.
I'm just starting with the last question that is there from Gopala Krishnan. Gopala Krishnan, and this can go for Dipankar also, who is there before this. You wanted a copy of the PPT, or you wanted a few slides. This is live on the YouTube channel. You can you can go onto the YouTube channel for Manya and for Manya the Princeton Review and see the webinar again, see a recording of the webinar again if necessary. Also, if you have any questions which are, which will require an assessment of your profile or require an assessment of your, your scores or your profile for admissions, please connect with one of the admissions team at Manya with the number that is given on your screen or at the email ID that is given. Even for training, I think someone was asking regarding training for IELTS. You can ask, you can connect over there also. All right.
So guys, you can actually use the number which is given on the screen or the email ID which is given on the screen. If you want to know more about the services that we offer, or you want to actually get a detailed understanding about your profile as well.
So Seema, one of the questions that you added over here is, someone said, sir, I'm sorry, I don't know the name, but someone said, sir, I wrote a TOEFL exam and I got 77 marks. University will accept this
score.
That
would be Ganesh. He has posted the question again.
Yeah. Okay. Ganesh, again, this is something from, I'm talking from an English testing perspective, but I'm sure Vikram will be able to add to this. This will depend largely on the university you want to go to. It will depend largely on the course that you want to go to. It will depend largely on the profile. Vikram, any inputs on this? Vikram, are you there?
Yes, Rahul, you are absolutely right on target. It does depend on the three factors that you mentioned. So the student needs to check the IELTS requirement at their targeted universities and even use the IELTS score that they have as a means to select universities for which they are qualified.
All right. Thank you. Seema, another question is IELTS mandatory for all countries? I come from Kenya and we are an Anglophone country. Please clarify this. As far as I'm pretty clear about this. Any country where IELTS, which is an English-speaking country for studies, will require IELTS. It will be a mandatory requirement for admissions to a university in this country. So it doesn't really matter which country you come from, whether the first language is English or not, there will be a requirement. Vikram, any adds to this?
Yes, it is a condition for admission,
Yeah,
a sufficient condition for admission.
yeah, it is. Okay, what is
And
the
it's a
min?
universal requirement, and it's
It is
also
yeah, it's a universal requirement. It is something that will be required throughout. What is the minimum score required in general IELTS? Again, very this is not a question that can be easily answered until and unless your profile is seen. There are various aspects that come into general IELTS. So naturally, you will be looking for immigration. So there will be a lot of profiling that would be needed to be done before it can be decided. But Vikram, what is your take on the best? I think 8777 is a very good score to get in general IELTS for immigration, if I'm not wrong.
yes, that is correct. And of course, if you want to make a strong impression, even a higher score can help you actually do that. Because again, PR applications are also extremely competitive and they are looking for near native, if not native levels of English proficiency, especially for people who are coming from non-IT, non-technical backgrounds, because again, technical people from technical backgrounds are always in a short supply in popular immigration destinations. But people who are coming from a non-technical background should are actually perceived to have a higher English proficiency often, and they should be able to demonstrate that through an even higher or a near perfect IELTS score so that their immigration application stands out.
Thank you, Vikram. I think that should be very, very clear. Thank you. Vikram, this one is for you. So the student says, I applied for general training. In future, can I study in a university with the same general training score? Or should I appear for academic again?
No, they would have to appear for the academic IELTS because academic IELTS tests your English proficiency and English competency at a higher level, at a slightly higher level compared to general training, which is essentially what your English language skills are for the workplace or for the community in that country. When it comes to academics, not only are you reading and learning in an English spoken environment, which requires a slightly higher English competency level, but you're also going to be doing assignments, small research papers, or even big research papers such as a dissertation or thesis, which might be a component of your master's degree or sometimes undergraduate degree. And writing that kind of a academic paper, whether it is published or whether it is just part of your academic um, progress or academic curriculum at the university, does require you to have a higher English competency level, and therefore the academic IELTS would be required for education purpose.
So this kind of answers the next question also. So if I have to go for some course and then job in the same field, what would be the type of IELTS you take? So any kind of course program that you're trying to study would require you to take academic IELTS. Ganesh has written, no, he's repeated the question. Ganesh, sir, my budget is 25 lakhs. Ganesh, if you want to talk about, applying to universities, I suggest that you get in touch with the number given on your screen. They'll be able to guide you better, right, regarding your profile and budgets and things like that. I want to take admission in Manya for general training. Wanted to talk to someone for the admission process. So now, Sohini, please get in touch with the number given. Someone will definitely help you for the admissions.
So we have another question by Lynn again. I think it kind of relates to what Vikram already spoke about. Like, could you please let us know what Lynn, I'm not sure whether that's how the name is spoken, but could you please let us know what is the required scores for immigration and education of IELTS exams? I think Rahul, both of you would be able to kind of like give some advice about that.
Let us know what is the required scores for immigration and education of IELTS exam. In the IELTS exam, you mean, right? So again, it is a varied requirement. It depends, Lenin, it depends a lot on which university you're going to, which program you're going to, which country you're going to, whether you're going for a postgraduate program, whether you're going for an undergraduate program. So it's a very, very big, big periphery, which will be better answered if you have someone speaking to you directly on this. And not here, we would probably not have enough time. So suggest that you talk to someone from Manya directly on the number and get help on this there. This will be an easier solution for you. Right.
The next question is by Raghavendra Pal. He wants to know what the top universities in Germany, the scores required for top university in Germany. Like, I think it's the average IELTS score that he's asking about. And he's also asking if any special training or preparation is actually required for the IELTS examination.
So I will answer the second part of the question and then I'll give it to Vikram to answer the first part. As far as the preparation for IELTS is concerned, there are two things that you would need to look at, Raghvinder. One is you would need to look at exactly what is the requirement of the university. That is the first thing. The second thing is that please remember that this exam is not like the other exams that you have. So when you talk about exams such as your school exams, whether it is CBSE, ICSE, depends on the board that you're giving, you have preparation of exams based on enablers. So enablers are basically your reading and comprehension and your spellings and things like that. But IELTS is a communicative exam. So it tests your communicative skills, which means that the preparation for the exam, the structure of the exam is something that you will have to practice with. Just knowing English may not be enough. You would need some sort of preparation for the IELTS exam. The first question, which says top universities in Germany, what's the average score? Vikram, you can answer that one.
Happy to answer that, Rahul. 7.5 overall with minimum 7 in each section. That's a good score to target in terms of your preparation.
So, Raghvinda, I think you've got a good set of answers over there. All right, Seema, next one.
So Lylan is also asking about what about immigration scores? So I think Vikram.
What about immigration scores? That answer, the question is not not specific enough. What do you mean by scores? Are you talking only about the IELTS score, or are you talking about other scores, numbers, points? What are you talking about? That is something that you want to have to clarify.
Somebody had asked another question, that is, they want to do their PhD abroad, and what could the process be in terms of, I think it's a very generic question though, but in terms of IELTS, is there any input that you guys can give?
What was the question again?
I want to do my PhD abroad. Could you please guide me on how that can be done? What is the process? What exams are required? So it's a pretty broad question.
Okay, so I won't be able to answer the entire thing because that is something that Vikram will be able to better put in. But all I can say is that when you're planning to do a PhD, it depends largely of a lot of it depends on what type of PhD you're planning to do. Are you planning to do a research PhD? Are you planning to do a curriculum PhD? That's the first thing. So the scores and the requirement of IELTS, everything will depend on that. What is the admission process? What is the process that you need to follow? The research PhD probably will be a little more difficult, if I'm not mistaken. What is the process as far as the academic PhD is concerned? That is something, again, Vikram will be able to shed light on. Vikram?
Yeah, so the PhD admissions process is very much networking driven, because before you actually apply for a PhD program, you want to reach out to professors who are actually doing research in your intended area of specialization. So let's say you are a computer science student. During your computer science degree, you specialized in, or you took quite a few courses in artificial intelligence and computational biology. And then with everything that's going on in the world around us, you realize that you would actually want to use artificial intelligence and its linked technologies such as data science and machine learning, let's say, or deep learning. You want to use that for disease prevention, or in whatever way you can help the health science industry or the biomedical industry. So in that case, you would actually have to look up professors who specialize in artificial intelligence for oncology, or artificial intelligence for disease prevention, or data science professors who are using techniques of data analytics for disease prevention again. And then you would have to write to them, tell them that this is what your interest area is. And once some of them respond back to you, you can talk about funding prospects, you can talk about admissions prospects. And once your discussions have actually reached fairly promising levels, then you would go ahead and apply to the university, to the graduate school, and the department. And you would mention the professors with under whom you wish to undertake the research. You would clearly elaborate your academic plans and professional plans or academic goals in terms of completing the PhD, why you want to do it, why now in this career, what you bring into the research program, how you intend to further the research, how you intend to benefit by not only what the university has to offer or what that professor has to offer, but in terms of the entire ecosystem that's prevailing over there. And then you would go ahead and submit your application. So that's in short, that is the PhD application process. It starts with a resume and a networking email that needs to go out to professors who are doing the kind of research that you're interested in at the relevant departments of universities.
Okay, so we have another question that's from Atul. So he says that he graduated in BTech in civil engineering in the year 2018 from Amity University. He was running a firm on that built high-rise structures in power plants, and he has an experience of 2.5 years. He wants to know what kind of masters he's eligible for.
So probably something to do with project management, if not a master's in civil.
Okay, so I hope
Civil
that
construction area of project management, that would be sort of the logical masters to apply for.
Right. So we have another question from Sneha. She is asking whether a high score like 8 does that give an advantage when it comes to college admission, or is a score of 6.5 or 7 enough? I think Rahul and Vikram, I think both of you would be able to contribute to that point.
Vikram, my take on this is that basically the IELTS, since it's not an exam that is going to secure a position for you in any way, if the university has a requirement, whatever the university requirement is, if the university says, yes, you can get admission with a 7, with a 6.5, in each band, then definitely the admission will be given. There's no advantage of getting, I mean, I won't say that there is a overly exaggerated advantage of getting an 8 when the university wants a 6.5 or a 7. So it depends largely on what the university wants, but there may be exceptions to this, Vikram.
Yeah, so you're right. If Rahul, if the applicant is meeting the minimum IELTS score requirement, then they are good to go. What happens is that if the applicant is from, let us say, the visa trend is such that applicants from too many people from India are applying, and there are certain states in India which are known for immigration intent rather than academic intent. So in those situations, if a student actually has a score of 8, which is on the higher side, that actually makes them look very much like a bona fide student. The academic intent comes across even stronger, irrespective of what their domicile is or which state they are claiming residentship of in India. Even if they are coming from a high risk state, their chance of getting the student visa are very high if the IELTS score is as high as 8.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense actually, Vikram. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it depends a lot on the state or the general what should I say, the general outlook of the students from that state and what they are going for basically to the universities for, to the
And
countries.
also, just to add on, Rahul, also what the visa trend is, because every 5 years the visa trend becomes less favorable because we saw, for example, in 2016, too many people were going to the US. This is even before the Donald Trump, this is obviously before the Trump government came in place. In the last stages of the Obama administration, uh, US authorities were very concerned about the large number of students from India coming into the US, and they started sending people back from airports. Even visas were getting rejected. So at that point, the US admissions trend had changed. The US visa trend had changed for the negative. And in that kind of situation, of course, having a higher score means you won't be in that unlucky 10% that face such issues.
That's a very important point actually. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense actually. Um, I have
Well,
a
there,
question. Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Seema.
Okay, there was a question by Lalan earlier. So she clarified her question, which is she wanted to know for speaking, listening, reading, what are the expected scores for immigration?
Speaking, listening. Again, Vikram, that would be your something that you can answer.
So immigration again, even the academic visa is technically an immigration visa, though it is a short-term duration one. So if you're a good student or you have plenty of time to prepare for the IELTS, then do try to get a minimum 7.5 with a minimum 7 in each section. Otherwise, 6.5 with 6 in each section does work. For certain types of academic programs, especially those offered by colleges and certain types of vocational or tertiary education programs, even a 5.5 works. So that depends actually on what you want to study. Likewise, if you are an IT engineer and a data analyst, these are professions which are in high demand in the popular countries. A slightly lower IELTS score that meets the minimum score requirement on the PR application or the immigration application, meeting the minimum score requirement should be fine. If you're coming from an unconventional background and you do have the time to prepare, then why not try to get at least a zero point 0.5 score higher than the minimum requirement to show that your English competency is good and you will be a valuable citizen of the country that you wish to that you wish to move to, because most people from India are planning to move to an English speaking country. So yeah, that would reflect well on your application, a high score.
All right, Seema, I'm just taking a question here from Pavitra. Which
Okay.
section is the hardest in IELTS and where should we focus? Pavitra, just to answer your question very, very simply, all sections are important. And your focus needs to be on the section that you find that you're struggling with. So focus on that section, but do not do not be lax in the other sections also. You need to focus on all your sections. The cumulative score of IELTS is important. So, and the cumulative score is dependent on your individual scores, right? So on your individual performance of each module. So it becomes very important. I will not say that writing is more important or reading is more important. It depends. Everything is important as far as IELTS is concerned. So, focus on it as a whole. Yeah, Seema, go ahead.
So there is another question by Gauri. She asks if there are any specific requirements for teaching courses or teaching jobs abroad. I think it's respect to IELTS requirements for these courses.
Again, for teaching, so when you talk about a country like Canada, for example, if you're planning to go there and teach, yes, there is a minimum requirement that would again be dependent on the state that you're planning to go and teach. And also there is a teaching license that you need to apply for. So there's an examination that you need to go there and do. My suggestion is again, get in touch with someone from Manya. They'll be able to give you better input on this and more details based on your profile. Nikhil has asked a question, Vikram, which says, what is the minimum score required in the University of Munich in Germany?
So I don't know that off the top of my head, Nikhil. You should actually look at their website. I would say the University of Munich might require a 7 with a minimum of 6.5. I can't say off the top of my head. So do look at their website.
This is actually a very important thing Vikram has said. Almost all universities, I wouldn't say almost, I'd say all universities very clearly state their requirements for IELTS for each program that they have, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Vikram? So
Yes, absolutely. It's very black and white. Universities are very clear about the IELTS scores that they require. And the good news is that there are a lot of universities out there for people with even lower IELTS scores. Of course, we would like to encourage you to get a high IELTS score because that improves your chance of admission and visa. But just in case that doesn't happen, there are universities that may accept a lower IELTS score, especially in non-English speaking countries, where the overall standard of English is lower because English is not their first language, just like for us. So they might be able to accommodate a lower score, or you might be able to substitute your knowledge of German or your competency level of German, and IELTS might become less important. So that there are a range of possibilities out there, and you need to check with the university. It's very clearly stated by each institution.
We have a question by Dania. She has completed, has completed 12th and wants to pursue a bachelor's in animation and VFX. So in addition to the IELTS, is there any exam that they have to actually pursue or not, is what this person wants to know.
So not likely, but they should again check with the targeted universities, because some of those universities might require a portfolio or a presentation as to what the student might have done already in the field of design or UX. So it would be very university specific. I don't think any other exams would be required.
Right. Okay, so Pavitra has another question, that is whether somebody can actually do an MS in computer science if they have actually done a bachelor's in bioinformatics. Is the switch actually possible, is what she wants to know.
So typically, universities require you to have taken certain prerequisite courses in computer science, and these are basics of C, C++, programming languages like Java. You should have worked with, or you should have a working knowledge of certain programming languages, certain courses in computer science, such as data structures, you should have a background in mathematics. So if you do meet all of those prerequisites, you can apply for a master's in bioinformatics. It's not going to be a seamless admissions process because obviously you may not have the, I'm sorry, you can apply for the master's in computer science coming in from a bioinformatics background. It's not going to be very easy because you may not have the full set of prerequisites, but you have to again talk to your admissions counselor, talk to the university, see if they might offer you an extra semester there to do prerequisites in computer science and then get into their masters.
Well, Noel wants to know if there's a certified IELTS exam center in Hyderabad.
Manya has centers in Hyderabad.
I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mahul. I'm just a bit confused. Noel, are you asking about an exam center or are you asking for a preparation center? So yeah, go ahead, Rahul. I think one of...
All right, so whether it's an exam center or a prep center, okay, exam writing center, Noel, you need to go on to the IDP website. They have the list of the centers over there. You can check over there. They have their centers. When you register for your exam, they'll be able to tell you which is the center that is there.
So this is one question by Saurav. He's looking for marine biology course in USA and he wants to know whether it's available in USA. Or,
Yes, it is available in the US.
okay. Nikhil wants to know, can we give the IELTS exam anywhere in India or are they just some specific states? I think this is kind of like goes along with what Noel has just asked earlier. And you would be able to actually identify, as Rahul said, on the IDP website.
Yeah, you'll be able to identify on the IDP website. You'll be able to choose a center for examination which is closest to you, to your to your domicile. So just look on that and you'll be able to find out what is required.
Okay, so we're kind of running out of time, guys. Vikram and Rahul, I'd like to personally thank all of you and our participants. Everybody, thank you for tuning in today. It's been really amazing. So if you need any other clarifications or if you want to ask any other questions, you can see the number on the screen and you can also see the email ID given on the screen. Do reach out to us on either of these and somebody will get back to you and give you the necessary information that you require or the direction. So thank you both and thank you everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Seema. Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.